Hi everyone, Grant for the Flame Learning channel. In this video, you'll learn about the new capability of loading LUTs or lookup tables directly in image and action. This gives you enhanced capability of loading your LUTs directly in the grading context, and the LUTs can also be used in the creative process when working with selectives to isolate a part of your image. So you'll cover loading LUTs in the effects environment, using LUTs within a selective isolation, loading the LUTs in the batch node flow graph, and how your LUTs are backed up once you're finished with the project. Here you have a sequence that you'd like to grade. So select a segment and switch to the effects environment. You can start grading straight away with the default image toolset. Now when it comes to using LUTs directly in image or action, you can load them anywhere in the context of the grade. This could be the primary, selectives, or output grade. The workflow is pretty much the same, and it's really easy. For example, I'll choose the primary grade and click the plus button to add a new shader. In the file browser, select the color management shader. So it is now part of the primary grading pipeline. To operate the LUT loader, it is very simple. Click Import. The default location is the Transforms folder that includes all the pre-installed color transforms with Flame 2022. Now navigate to your LUT and load it into the color management shader. So here is the particular look from this LUT, and you can control its intensity on the image. You can also grade on top of this by adding an additional master grade. Flame supports a wide variety of options, and please check the online documentation for the list of supported formats. Finally, in terms of the working color space, you have the option to process the LUT through any color space you want. For example, you could use the original color space, which in my case is Rec 709. Or you can switch the working color space to log, and the LUT will be applied through the log color space. This is an internal process within the color management shader. The Matchbox shader does not change the color space tagging on the clip. So in my case, the segment will still be Rec 709 if I looked at the segment in the sequence. We'll talk more about converting the color space tagging later in the video. Another creative way of using the color management LUT loader is loading a look through a selective isolation. For example, you would choose your selective and isolate a part of your image. This could be with any of the keyers, masks, machine learning, or all of them combined. So if you look at the selective views, you can see where the LUT will affect the image. Now you can add a new shader or replace the current one. So switch to the shader menu and change the shader. Once again, load the color management shader. Go back to the result view and import your LUT. So the LUT is limited by the selective and is part of the shader pipeline. This means you can add another master grade after the LUT and continue to grade within the selective. So this workflow is super flexible. You can also use the color management shader to load LUTs directly in the image or action nodes as part of the node flow graph in batch. Just add an image node and connect the node inputs. Going into the image node, you follow the same steps by adding a new shader to either the primary, selective, or output pipelines. You choose the color management shader and then proceed to import your LUT. The output of this node can be fed anywhere into your flow graph. Now it is definitely worth mentioning that if you want to load LUTs as a separate process, you still have the main color management tool as a node in batch, or as a timeline effects within the sequence. Now, when loading LUTs using the color management shader in Action or Image, I did mention a few times that this shader does not change the color space tagging of the shot or node output. This is the same when working with segments in a sequence. Setting the working color space in the color management shader applies a change within this process and applies the LUT on top. If you want to change the output color space tagging in either the Action or Image node, you go to the Setup menu. Here you would set the color management to be user-defined, and then you would choose your desired color space output. This will update the color space tagging on the nodes in batch, as well as the segments in the sequence. The last topic before concluding this video is what Flame does when saving a setup or backing up the project. So when you save a setup to a particular location, Flame copies all the files, including a copy of your LUT, into the same location. This ensures that if the original LUT is deleted, Flame will be able to use the copy to achieve the same look. The same principle is applied to archiving. When you archive the project, all the files, including the LUT, are stored as part of the archive. When the project is restored, Flame will look to the original location for the original LUT. If it does not find the LUT, Flame will revert to the restored copy of the LUT, and you'll have exactly the same look as before. This is a great protective feature for those custom LUTs. Please subscribe to the Flame Learning channel and click the bell to be notified for future videos. Comments, feedback and suggestions are always welcome and appreciated. And thanks for watching.